Yo, what's up everybody? Hassan Minhaj here, and today we're diving into some heavy stuff. Today we're talking about Russia, Ukraine, and a financial meltdown for the history books. Buckle up, because this is a wild ride. See, back in 2014, Russia went all Crimea River and annexed a chunk of Ukraine. It was a bold move that shook the world. The world was like, yo, not cool man, but Russia basically shrugged it off. They were like, what are you gonna do about it? Fast forward to 2022, and Putin decides to go full-on Tsar Nicholas II. You know, the last Tsar of Russia? Yeah, that guy. He thought he could pull off a similar stunt. He launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, thinking it'll be a quick victory. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The resistance was fierce. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hassan, why should I care about some Eastern European squabble? Well, let me break it down for you. Because, my friends, this ain't just about borders and tanks. It's about the global economy, the price of your morning latte, and a whole lot of human suffering. It's about the global economy, the price of your morning latte, and a whole lot of human suffering. This conflict has far-reaching consequences. This war has exposed Russia's economic underbelly like a bad borscht recipe. The sanctions are biting hard. Sanctions are hitting harder than a Khabib Nurmagomedov takedown. And the Russian people? They're feeling the squeeze. They're paying the price, literally. From long lines for basic necessities to skyrocketing prices, it's a tough situation. So, February 24th, 2022. A date that will be remembered for its seismic impact on global politics and economics. Putin's army rolls into Ukraine, expecting a cakewalk, a swift and decisive victory. They thought Ukrainians would be throwing flowers, not Molotov cocktails. But the Ukrainian spirit proved to be unbreakable. Turns out, invading a country that doesn't want you there is a terrible business strategy. Who knew, right? The resistance was fierce and unyielding. The initial shockwaves were felt around the world. Stock markets went haywire. Oil prices skyrocketed, causing global economic tremors. And the Russian ruble? It basically took a swan dive off a Siberian cliff, plummeting to historic lows. Remember when your Econ 101 professor said, "Don't invade sovereign nations"? Yeah, this is why. The economic principles were clear. The West, led by the US and the European Union, responded with a resounding, "Oh hell no!" They were united in their stance. They hit Russia with sanctions so severe, they made Ivan Drago sweat. The pressure was immense. We're talking about freezing assets, banning banks from SWIFT, and cutting off financial lifelines, and basically telling the Russian economy to get thee to a gulag. The repercussions were devastating and far-reaching. Now, sanctions are nothing new. We've seen them used against Iran, North Korea, you name it. But these were different. These were designed to cripple the Russian economy, and they did. The West basically said, you want to play Risk in the 21st century? We'll show you how it's done. They targeted Russia's energy sector, its financial institutions, and even its oligarchs, those super rich dudes who vacation on yachts bigger than my apartment. The message was clear. This aggression will not stand. And it wasn't just the West. Countries like Japan, South Korea, and even Switzerland, the land of neutrality and delicious chocolate, joined the party. It was a global effort to tell Putin, you can't just go around invading countries and expect to be invited to the G20 summit afterwards. Remember that ruble swan dive I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it got ugly. The ruble lost almost half its value in a matter of days. Imagine waking up one morning and your life savings are worth less than a used Lada. That's what happened to millions of Russians. The Russian central bank tried to play damage control, hiking interest rates to levels that would make even the greediest banker blush. But the damage was done. Inflation soared, making everyday goods ridiculously expensive. People were lining up outside banks, desperate to withdraw their money before it turned into monopoly money. It was a full-blown currency crisis, the kind you usually only read about in economics textbooks. Section 5. From oligarchs to oligarchs, the rich get poorer. Now, let's talk about those oligarchs. These guys are like the Russian version of Silicon Valley billionaires, except they made their fortunes in oil, gas, and, well, let's just say, questionable business practices. They're used to living large private jets, mega yachts, Fabergé egg omelets, you name it. But the sanctions hit them where it hurts, their wallets. Their assets were frozen, their yachts were seized, and their travel visas were revoked. Suddenly, these guys who were used to flying private were stuck in economy class, probably next to a screaming baby and a guy who took his shoes off. It was a rude awakening, to say the least. Section 6. Pipeline Politics. Europe turns the tap off. Here's the thing about Russia. It's basically a giant gas station with a side hustle in nuclear weapons. For years, Europe has relied heavily on this gas station to keep its lights on and its homes warm. They supply a huge chunk of Europe's natural gas, which is kind of like having your annoying roommate control the thermostat. This dependency has been a point of contention for a long time. So, when the war started, Europe was in a bind. The situation was dire, and the stakes were incredibly high. They needed Russian gas to heat their homes and power their industries. Without it, the continent faced a potential energy crisis. But they also couldn't just let Putin finance his war machine with their euros. The moral and ethical implications were too significant to ignore. It was a classic case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. The economic and political dilemma was unprecedented. In the end, Europe decided to bite the bullet and start weaning itself off Russian gas. This decision marked a significant shift in energy policy. It wasn't easy, and it definitely wasn't cheap, but it was the right thing to do. The transition required massive investments and a lot of political will. They invested in renewable energy, diversified their suppliers, and sought alternative sources of energy, and basically told Putin, "We're breaking up with you." This was a bold and necessary move for Europe's future. It's not us, it's you. The message was clear and unequivocal, and your invasion of Ukraine. This was the final straw that pushed Europe to take decisive action. Section 7. The brain drain. When leaving is the only option. Now, while the oligarchs were busy hiding their yachts, ordinary Russians were facing a different kind of crisis. The economy was in free fall. Jobs were disappearing faster than dissidents at a Putin press conference, and the future looked bleaker than a Siberian winter. So, what did they do? They left. Hundreds of thousands of Russians, especially young, educated professionals, packed their bags and headed for the exits. They went to countries like Georgia, Armenia, and Turkey, places where they could at least work remotely without fear of being drafted into the army. It was a brain drain of epic proportions, as Russia lost its best and brightest minds to a war they didn't even support. Section 8. The price of war. Beyond the balance sheet. Now, we've talked about the economic costs of the war, but let's not forget about the human toll. Thousands of innocent Ukrainians have lost their lives, their homes, their loved ones. Millions more have been displaced, forced to flee their country and start over in a foreign land. And in Russia, the war has had a chilling effect on dissent. Anyone who dares to speak out against the war risks arrest, imprisonment, or worse. It's a tragedy on a human level, a stark reminder that war is never the answer. Section 9. Can Russia recover? A glimpse into the future. So, where does Russia go from here? Can its economy recover from this self-inflicted wound? The short answer is, it's complicated. The sanctions are unlikely to be lifted anytime soon, especially if the war drags on. Russia's reliance on energy exports makes it vulnerable to fluctuations in global prices, and the brain drain has depleted its workforce of skilled professionals. It's a perfect storm of economic challenges, and there are no easy solutions. Some experts believe Russia could pivot to China and other Asian markets, but that's easier said than done. Others predict a long and painful period of economic stagnation, a new normal of lower living standards and limited opportunities. Section 10. In the shadow of sanctions. A new world order? The war in Ukraine has not only bankrupted Russia, it's also reshaped the global order. It's shown that economic interdependence can be a double-edged sword. It's accelerated the shift away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy. And it's exposed the fragility of international institutions in the face of naked aggression. The world is watching, waiting to see what lessons will be learned from this costly conflict. One thing is for sure, the world will never be the same. That's it for me, folks. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay woke. Peace out.